Hello everybody, thank you very much for coming and listening to me talk today. My name's Rikki van Berkel and I'm a solutions consultant at Brandwatch. What I'm going to be talking about today is how to extract and share business insights faster and more effectively, specifically using social listening. Now, some of you may have used social listening in the past, some of you might be using dedicated solutions, some of you might be doing it natively. I'm hoping that I can give everyone a little bit of something to take away today to how you can perform social listening a little bit better. I'm going to start off today by telling you a really quick story, and this story is about a toothpaste company. An exciting subject, I know, but it will make sense, so stay with me. Now, this particular toothpaste company was having an issue with its supply lines. Every now and again, a box of toothpaste was being shipped out to a customer without a tube of toothpaste inside it. Naturally, this was causing customers to complain, which is something the company wanted to prevent. So what did this company do? They hired a consultant to come in and try and fix this problem for them. And the consultant came along and built a genius solution whereby at a point on the supply line, there would be a set of weighing scales. And every time an empty box passed over that section in the supply line, an alarm would sound because the box was lighter and it had no toothpaste tube within it. An alarm would sound and the supply line would stop, allowing someone to come and remove the empty box of toothpaste without it having to go out to the customer. Problem solved. Consultant is paid their probably quite handsome fee and they go on their way and the solution is fixed. Now, 2 years later, a new employee joins the company. And it's part of this employee's job to remove the empty box of toothpaste when the alarm sounds so the supply line can restart again. But this employee is an ambitious employee. They want to do more than they're doing currently. They want to progress within the company, but they're getting super frustrated because they're always having to go to the supply line and they're having to remove empty boxes of toothpaste. Big frustration for them. 2 months after this employee starting, the manager of the company noticed that for a couple of weeks, the alarm to identify an empty box of toothpaste hasn't sounded and the supply line hasn't stopped. And naturally, the manager is quite concerned by this. Is something going wrong? Is something broken? Why have we had no empty boxes of toothpaste? So he goes to the new employee and he asks them, he says, what's happened? Why hasn't this alarm sounded in so long? And quite simply, the new employee points to a point on the supply line just before the weighing scales where he had placed a desktop fan that was blowing these empty boxes of toothpaste off the supply line into the bin so that they wouldn't bother him or the supply line. Which is ingenious, right? And it made this whole consultant's expensive solution worthless. But why am I telling you this story now? I think this is a perfect example of how we can make small changes in the work that we do to make our lives just that little bit easier. Now, in my role as a solutions consultant, I spend my days building solutions to problems using social listening, using Brandwatch. And, maybe it's because I'm lazy, maybe it's because I'm super efficient, I don't know. But I've come up with a few of my own versions of the desktop fan to make my life a little bit easier. And what I want to do today is share with you just 5 of those tips to hopefully make your lives a little bit easier as well. So tip number 1 is all around building bigger and better searches. For anyone that's used a social listening tool in the past, or in fact, I guess any kind of research-based tool, you'll know that the foundation of that tool is building an effective search, capturing the information that you need to capture. This is super important, and doing this quickly and effectively really makes a difference when you're performing social listening. So let's take a look at one of these search rings. Some of you will have seen something like this before. Some of you might not have. But I think we'll all probably have a similar reaction that this looks pretty complicated and looks pretty time-consuming to create. To write out all of these different keywords, that's taking time and it's probably not the most exciting thing to do in the world. So what can we do about this? Well, if we break down this search and what we're looking at on the screen here, really the bulk of what we're looking at is a bunch of different keywords. In this example, we're looking at H&M and all of their different products. And all of these keywords and phrases are just separated by the word or. So what we need to do is we need to find the keywords that we need to track and add in those or operators. Now, A lot of you will probably already have the keywords that you want to track available to you. Maybe you'll have a list of your products available within a shared folder somewhere, or maybe you'll have I don't know, a list of campaigns that you've run previously. In fact, even public websites share all of this information for us. You know, you've got Wikipedia pages with all locations on them, with, you know, different cities or different products or different types of car, perhaps. In fact, H&M were really helpful when I was building this particular search because they list all of their products and all of their campaigns for me. So I can get the keywords, nice and easily. I can copy and paste them. But how do I construct those into a search? And this is where the tip comes in. Well, what we do is we use a tool that we've probably all used at some point in the past, which is Microsoft Excel. We copy those keywords into a long column, and then we use the columns on either side to add phrase marks, where we have phrases, or to just add in that OR operator. Because Excel has fantastic features like copy and paste and dragging down to copy down a page, it makes it really easy to do. So using this page allows us to build potentially very complicated searches within a matter of minutes. So that's tip number one, building bigger and better searches. Cool. Tip number two, slick dashboards equals slick insights. I tried to channel my kind of inner marketing when I came up with this title. I don't think I've done too well. Will, our CMO, probably would have done a much better job than me. But I guess the point I'm trying to look at here is that finding insights within social data is a little bit like digging for prehistoric animals. When you're digging for a prehistoric animal, you know the kind of general area that you're looking within. You know the kind of general space that you're looking for, but you don't know exactly where those fossils or those bones are going to pop up. It's exactly the same with social listening. You know that you want to listen to your brand, or you know that you want to listen to a conversation about a campaign or a subject, but you don't know where that insight is necessarily going to come from. So in the archaeologist's example, they will use a number of different tools in order to find those bones really quickly. With social listening, we need to make sure we have the right tools available to find that insight quickly. Or in other words, we need to have a slick dashboard that makes insights readily available. So this next tip, I guess, is more of a combination of tips as to how you can arrange a social listening dashboard in a manner that will provide you insights as soon as you enter that dashboard, not having to kind of click in and look around. So the first of those is use multiple components with very slight differentiations within them. One visualization can only show you so much without having to change components and change filters and things like this. So rather than using just one word cloud with all of the different conversation within there, use 3 and place them side by side. What's the advantage of doing this? Well, in this particular example, I've separated my word clouds out by looking at emojis, by looking at hashtags, and then just by looking at the general keywords. So if I see this within my dashboard, without having to click on anything, without having to go into more detail, using the emojis, I see the emotion that's being displayed within that conversation. When I look at the hashtags, I see the kind of conversations that people are engaging in within this particular area. And then finally, with the keywords, I just see what people are talking about. No extra clicking, it's instantly available to me. Another version of how we can do this is with positive and negative conversation. So I've got one cloud on the left, which is looking at negative drivers of conversation. I've got one cloud on the right that's looking at positive drivers of conversation. Again, instantly going into this dashboard, I know what is causing people to talk negatively about my given subject and what is causing people to talk positively about my given subject. If you had this in one cloud, much, much harder to see. And last but not least, let's say we want to differentiate between conversations or activity that's happening on social media, on blogs and forums, or in the news. We simply have 3 different word clouds, one for each data source. This allows us to understand if a story or a crisis or a positive trend is happening just on social, or if it's happening just in the news. Then we can quickly make a decision as to this is something that our social media team need to pick up, or our PR team need to pick up. And again, these are small changes, but they're giving you the ability to see those insights instantly, as opposed to having to click in and view more information. It take a little bit longer, I guess. Next kind of dashboard tip is around peak analysis. Peak analysis is super important when carrying out social listening, and it's without a doubt the quickest way to finding out what the most important points within a conversation are. A friend of mine, I think, put it fantastically, and he said, you can't predict the future without first analysing the past. You can't know what's going to cause a peak in conversation without looking at what's caused peaks in conversation to happen previously. So every dashboard I build always has some volume over time analysis at the top. I can then see for the last 30 days, what was the most important thing within this subject area? What caused people to go online and start sharing about this particular piece of content, I guess. Little pro tip, if you're using Brandwatch, luckily you have the ability to use our AI assistant, which is Iris, which essentially does this work for you. So rather than clicking into those peaks, you just see which peaks are most significant and then what's generated conversation within those as well. And then my last dashboard tip, the picture will make sense in a second. If someone else has already said something better than you could say it, let them do so. Let me explain what I mean. When we're building social listening dashboards, typically what we're going to be doing is building some sort of report. That report is likely going to be on an event. Maybe it was a campaign, maybe it was a product launch, maybe it's a physical event like we're doing here. Now, the people that we're sharing that report with, they might not necessarily know too much about the event or the product launch or the campaign that we're talking about. So what do? We annotate the dashboard, we add some notes, we put some information in an email that makes it really clear to them what they are looking at and what this report is all about. This is a fairly straightforward task, but it's a task that we could probably do a little bit quicker. The great thing about working with social data is, in reality, what we're working with is a load of other people talking about our event for us. So of all the hundreds or maybe thousands of people that have spoken about your event, surely one of them has summed it up perfectly for you. Maybe it's a news article, maybe it's a Facebook post, maybe it's a thread on a forum. One of those will sum it up perfectly. So rather than retyping that information yourself, copy the link, take a screenshot of that article, put it at the top of your report. It's going to be far quicker than typing things out manually. So that brings me on to my third tip. Now, the tips that I've been going through so far have been fantastic if you have a good set of data to work with. There's a lot of conversation out there about your brand that you can look into and you can find insight and, build dashboards on. But one of the challenges we see with social listening is if you're an emerging brand and there's not that much conversation out there about you, how do you benefit from social listening? Because there's not enough data to work with. Well, the simplest way to solve that problem is to use your competition. Chances are your competitors' consumers are also your consumers. And if they're not, then you should definitely be trying to make that so. So rather than looking at your own brand, look at your competitor's brand to find that insight. Now, some of you might be sitting here thinking, maybe I work for a government agency or a charity, or maybe my brand or my product is so new that I don't have competitors yet. If that's the case, fantastic. But this idea of competition can be broadened out slightly. If there's any brands out there that you feel you could learn from, or quite simply whose customers you want to speak to, you can use that brand and the conversation about that brand to draw social insight. Specifically, how do we do this? Well, a very straightforward way to do so is to look at your competitor's Facebook page or the brand that you're interested in's Facebook page. Look at some of the questions that are being asked on all of those different posts. Look at the things that people say they really like about that brand, creates a real brand affinity there, and we can use that information in our marketing material and in our product decisions. If there's something that all of your competitors' customers are complaining about, why not tell your customers how you can solve that problem? That's a fantastic way to win business from your competition, and it's right there in front of you. Tip number four. Tip number four is a fun one. I hope you agree, and it's all about reporting. We all love reporting, right? Some maybe more than others. And I think reporting is, of course, really important. We all, of course, need to report on the work we do because we need to prove that it provides value and we need to learn from it. But there's a big problem with reporting, and that it takes so much time that probably could be spent doing other more business-critical things. Not only is building reports time-consuming, traditional methods of reporting are potentially quite ineffective as well. Sending an email, sharing a PDF, sharing a spreadsheet, these types of reporting are causing problems for businesses across the globe. In fact, to kind of add to this point, a report was put out by the World Bank back in 2014, stating that the solution to all our problems may be buried in PDFs that nobody reads. They made this point that it's very, very possible, the amount of reports that we send out, probably the answers to all of our questions are in there somewhere, we just can't get them, because how many people read every single report they are sent? I know I certainly don't. So what can we do about this? The answer really is quite simple. It's, you only send the right reports to the right people at the right time. Fairly straightforward, I think. And really how we do that, we need software to help us to do that. We need a solution in play that allows us to do that quickly. So before I talk about that, I just want you to quickly just imagine how long either you individually or people within your organization spend building out reports on a weekly basis, let's say. How many of those reports are the same every single week? They're putting out the same content. Yeah, the information might be slightly different, but it's always sales figures or social conversation or whatever that might be. Now add that time up across everyone in your organization, across a month, a quarter, a year. That time adds up to quite a substantial amount, and time that could be better spent elsewhere. Now let's imagine that we had the ability to build that report just once, send that report to the right people just once, and then those recipients of the report to have that information readily available to them at all times. This is something that's entirely possible with a product that you may have seen out in the foyer already, which is Brandwatch Visio. So those 6 big screens displaying social insight, that's Brandwatch Visio. And that's one part of the product, is displaying on those big screen displays. But a fantastic part of the product is the ability to build out reports just like this. So just by, in the kind of PowerPoint style, pulling data from social or pulling it from Google Analytics or from spreadsheets or whatever it might be, and then sending those reports out via email. So you send that report once and someone has access to it forever, therefore eliminating any need to constantly report on the same information. And that leads me on to my 5th and final tip. And this 5th and final tip is an ambiguous one, is be the second son. Now I'm going to explain exactly what I mean by that. And actually, what I wanted to do for the last tip is very much like at the beginning. I just wanted to finish with a quick story to demonstrate what I want to talk about. And this story, I guess, you can say it's more of a parable than a story, right? It's about a pharaoh that ruled over ancient Egypt thousands and thousands of years ago. Now this pharaoh was coming towards, he's getting quite old, and he knew that soon he would have to pass over his rule and all of the riches of Egypt onto one of his 2 sons. But he had no idea which son he wanted to pass on his riches to. So what did he do? He designed a challenge whereby he could test which son was most worthy. He summoned both of his sons to his temple, and he gave them the challenge, which was each son had to build a pyramid. They had 10 years to build the pyramid, and whoever built the pyramid quickest would have all of the riches available to the rule of Rome. So, of course, both sons accept, and off they go about their work to do this. Son number 1 is convinced that just through hard work, he can get this pyramid built. He doesn't need to kind of, know what he's talking about or know what he's doing. He's just going to really put his effort in, and he's going to get that pyramid built. And he makes progress initially quite quickly. And after a couple of years, although progress starts to slow, he is starting to build out his pyramid. Whilst this is all happening, seemingly the second son has done nothing, and people are starting to get worried. Why has this son not done anything? Does he not want to be Pharaoh of Rome? In fact, what the second son has been doing has been researching and has been speaking to experts that have built pyramids before, and he's learning about how a pyramid should be built. After 2 years, he begins construction on his pyramid. 2 years later, the second son has caught up with the first son, and 2 years after this, the second son's pyramid has been completed, and of course, he then gains access to all of the riches that being Pharaoh of Egypt has to offer. Now again, why am I telling you this story? I think when we're working, or when you are working with a software company, some of you will be working with one or many of the companies that are here today, you're inherently surrounded by experts, whether you're working with Infomedia, Hootsuite, ZeroFox, or with Brandwatch. There are hundreds of people at your disposal that know exactly how to solve your problems, that have gone through the experiences you're going through when trying to set up social media management or listening. So my fifth and final tip is quite simple. It's to use the advice and the expertise available to you. Before you dive headfirst into a project, speak to someone at Hootsuite, speak to someone at Brandwatch, ask them the best way to approach it, or in other words, be that second son. Those are my tips. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening to me today. I have finished slightly early, so I think we need to stay in here until 2:15 so we don't disturb any of the other talks, unless you want me to just do some stand-up for a little bit, but I don't think anyone necessarily wants that. But thank you very much for listening. I'll be around if anyone has questions.